What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Speaking Sessions podcast. I'm your public speaking coach, Philip Sessions, here with Chris Bowen. He is a seasoned entrepreneur who founded his own pool construction company in 2017, specializing in pool service and building high-end swimming pools. By 2022, his industry expertise garnered recognition with features in esteemed publications like Pro Pool Magazine, Pool Magazine, and Aqua Magazine. Notably, Chris earned a spot on the prestigious 30 under 40 list for outstanding contributions in the pool industry. In 2021, he strategically sold the service aspect of his business. However, faced the challenges the company had to cease operations in 2022 due to escalating construction costs, leading to a bankruptcy process. Undeterred, Chris pivoted to launch Level Up Consulting and Marketing, where he continues to bring his wealth of expertise to the forefront of the industry. And today, seeing as pool is a very niche thing and Chris is in marketing, I wanted to talk about us as speakers, how us niching down will allow us to be better speakers and penetrate the market so much better than trying to be super broad. So we're going to go in and talk a lot about marketing in the aspects of public speaking today. But before we get into that, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me today, Philip. I'm really excited to be here, man.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you here. So we've had somebody that's been an FBI informant. They went to jail. We've had a lot of different
Dang.
people. I think you're my first person that has went through bankruptcy.
Yeah, it's one of those things. When I went through it, I thought I was the only one in the world that it had happened to, and poor pitiful me and all that. And then I had an outpouring of support from a lot of people, telling me about their stories and stuff like that really inspired me to keep going through everything and continue the entrepreneurship goal at the end of the day. So just excited to be here.
Man, and not to get on this whole bankruptcy train, if you will, but that's a great story, and really, I think a great starting point for us to talk about why we should share our journey, our story, and everything, and talk about these things openly, within context, and depends on the brand that you're trying to create. But I would love for you to kind of dive into that, because I think bankruptcy, that's a lot of people are embarrassed by that. I'm sure there's probably times you're like, man, I can't believe I went through that. But you being on the other side, I can tell you're a very happy person. You're getting after it, and it doesn't seem to bother you as much anymore. But I know there's people out there that feel like, if I talk about this failure, and bankruptcy is one of those we're like, don't talk about it. But if I talk about that, people are going to look at me badly. But like you kind of mentioned there, people uplifted you. So I would love to kind of hear more about that positive side of sharing what could have been looked at as a negative thing towards you and your character.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it is one of those things that when you go through it, you feel a lot of shame about it. And it's rough, but I think it's important to share that with people, so that, when people look at you, they don't always see. When people are looking from the outside in, all they see is the success side of things 99% of the time. And for some people, it's hard to relate to that, because they haven't been able to experience that in their life. And so I think it is important that, when we have failures, we share those just as much as our successes in life, so that people understand, hey, it's okay to go through things. When we go through things, it's not about, just getting there and stopping. It's about how you pick yourself up after and rebuild yourself. And so that's what really kind of God's called on my heart to do, is to kind of share that story with people and share with them that, hey, there is life after this.
Yeah.
You go look, I don't care how, what your politics are, but you look at previous politicians and they've gone through multiple bankruptcies in business and things like that. Failure is just a part of business. Very rarely does somebody have one business for the entirety of their life that's successful. A lot of times it takes people multiple businesses to be successful. And and it's okay.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And unfortunately, I think probably more so us as men, but really just humans in
Yeah,
general, we learn so much more from our failures. And us as
absolutely.
men seem to not learn until we fail. And something I joke about with my wife all the time, like, if you really want me to know something or know how important it is, you're going to have to figuratively hit me over the head with a 2x4.
That's
Otherwise,
exactly
I'm going to
right.
think, no big deal, whatever, and move on. Or I just don't listen at all sometimes. And I have to work towards listening. But sometimes I'm like, you've got to stop me, especially if I'm watching TV. And and my mom had said the same thing growing up too. But like, my mom or my wife will start to have a conversation with me. I'll answer the conversation, whatever, answer the question. I zone right back into the TV, and they
Yeah.
talk some more. And then they're just like, Philip. I'm like,
What?
what? Like,
I didn't know you were talking.
didn't hear a word. And my wife gets so
Oh
pissed
yeah.
off at me about that. Cause I mean, it'll literally be like, and I don't know how I can do it. And I think most men do this. Like, within 5 seconds, like, the wife, you just answered a question, you zone back into the
Yeah, there was a
TV.
pause there. I don't know why you wanted me to continue to listen. You didn't tell me to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's so a lot of times, well, this is a total tangent, but we'll focus in on that. So you've got to make sure that the person is listening to everything. But with these stories, with these failures, you learn a lot, is what I was getting at there. Clearly went on a tangent.
Absolutely. So, and to touch on that, I saw a great meme on Facebook actually today that was it talked about how children, as they're learning to walk, they fall down 50 times,
Mm,
but they don't give up. They persevere and they learn to walk again, or they
yeah.
learn to walk. And so business is kind of like that, in that even though you fall down 50 times, you have to continue. You have to continue to grow and continue to try and just not give up on it. And eventually you will find success.
Yeah. And the old adage, you only fail when you give up, when you
That's
quit.
exactly
So
right.
yeah, you wouldn't look at a toddler and be like, I remember all those times you fell. Yeah, like, you're a failure at walking. I'm
That's
like, no,
exactly right.
they're walking now. Who
I
cares
live
about that?
by the you either win or you learn.
Yeah, exactly. So, and just to touch on this a little bit more, I know you went into it a little bit, but utilizing these stories, then we can start to transition more into the marketing
Yeah,
aspect
you're
of this
good.
as well. But using that story of your bankruptcy, or just stories of yourself and your business through marketing yourself, how has that been able to help you distinguish yourself as well as connect with this audience, whether it be on social media or in person?
I think it lets people see me as a real person. Somebody who's not just a fake social media person. I think a lot of people that we see on there, when you only see people's successes, they tend, even though that may not be the case, they tend to be thought of as, you know, that's a fake or that's a persona that they're putting on. And I think that it allows me to come across as more of a real person and allows me to people to connect with me a little bit easier.
Mm. And so let's put your marketing hat on here real quick.
Okay.
From a marketing perspective, what would you say? And if you get a little nerdy, a little marketer, then that's cool. But like, I would love to hear from that marketing perspective, especially like,
Yeah,
let's
it builds
let's
a
talk
trust
about the
factor.
comparison, being this generic vanilla ice cream versus being very specific pistachio type ice cream when it comes to putting your brand out or not, or barely putting it out. What does the difference look like from a marketing perspective for us to build our
I think
brand?
it helps people with the trust factor, which is, the number one thing when people choose who to work with is, do they trust you? And if, it was something that I was trying to hide from my past, that may be an issue of, are people going to trust me if they find this out about me? And so just being honest and out there about everything in life, I think that it builds that trust factor a little bit and allowing me to build a little bit more credibility with people. Because especially in the pool or construction industry, it's a big thing. It's going on every single day right here in Dallas Fort Worth. I mean, I hear about companies going out of business every day right now, with the economy and everything. And so it helps people understand, like, hey, I'm not alone in this. What do I need to do to continue to elevate my brand and continue to grow my brand? Let me talk to somebody who's been through this, who's has that experience going through it and can maybe look back on that and see, if I had done this differently, I may not have gone through that situation.
So really good there. Yeah. Really building that trust, that know, like, and trust that we always hear about. So
Yeah.
true when we're putting ourselves out there, and another little buzzword, authentic, vulnerable. Those are things that
Yeah.
we hear a lot about. So I would like to real quick, like, kind of hear your thoughts on that too, being the marketing expert. What, when it comes to being authentic, being vulnerable, like, how much of our personal self should we be sharing out there?
I think that's going to depend person to person. I mean, obviously, you don't want to be that person that divulges everything that ever happens in their life. Nobody wants to be around that person. But I think you need to be strategic in what, as you develop a personal brand, what you put out there versus what you don't, and make sure it's information that you want out there. People don't want to hear about the nasty details of your divorce. People don't want to hear about all the problems that you have in life necessarily. But if you, let's say, for example, you're an alcoholic, people don't necessarily want to hear about you going through alcoholism. What they want to hear is they want to hear the success story of when you've beaten alcoholism,
Mm.
you know? And I think that's a big difference as well. Um, I wouldn't, when you're going through certain things, that maybe don't put it out there right when you're going through it, but work through those things and then address it as a part of your brand.
Hmm. And yeah, you talking about really the thing that we overcame. Everybody loves a good
Yes.
comeback story
They love a
or
good comeback story, a
overcoming.
good underdog story.
Yeah, yeah. But I'm curious because I feel like there's more people out there that don't have that underdog story, that rags to
Yeah.
riches. Oh, I was, high, always on drugs, and I was homeless, all this stuff, and then I turned my life around. Now I'm a gazillionaire. A
Yeah.
lot of people seem to start where, maybe they weren't wealthy. Maybe they were like maybe middle class. Maybe they were a little bit like lower middle class or something, but they could still pay the bills. They could still take care of things. But then they had this desire to make their life better. And
Mhm.
from a perspective on both of those, the one that sounds sexier is like you came from zero
Yeah, that's
to
always going to be
millions.
the sexier thing.
Yeah.
But I think part of that is finding a way to push yourself and say, hey, look, these are still some of the things that I overcame. I don't have this rags to riches story, but I'm going to preach about my work ethic. I'm going to preach about these are the things, this is how I structure my day. This is what I do. This is what I'm about.
Hmm.
And preaching those core values to people. And I
Yeah.
think that you just have to market it a little bit different in terms of, pushing your personal brand when you're trying to do that.
Yeah, so let's dive into that a little bit, because I think this is important for people to understand that
Yeah.
application there, because it's definitely difficult, because what seems common to me, what's basic to me,
It's not
may
to
not be
everybody.
basic to others. So can you help us understand, like, maybe some things that we can do, and a way to shift our mindset a little bit around this so we're not thinking in that manner?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a great way is, we kind of connected through a group that we're a part of for business owners. And they've got a great app that they use, in my opinion, of, what are things that you're thankful for every day? What are your wins? What are things that you need to work on? Making sure that you have that mindset of every day. Hey, I have a list of what I'm thankful for. I have a list of my wins for the day. I have a list of what I spent my time on today. And I think that really helps people's mindsets when it comes to developing their business.
Yeah, so really going through and focusing on, like, gratitude. Yeah, you focusing on the
Yeah,
mindset, just putting
absolutely.
yourself in that positive mindset. But and that's good. But what are maybe some things that, as far as like sharing on social media, everybody loves to know, like, what can I share on social media? So what are some things that aren't just here's my business, here's how we can work together, sales,
Yeah, I think you
posts,
got
stuff
to
like
mix it
that.
up a lot. Nobody wants to be friends with the person that all they do is push their business, 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 business. If you're talking about your personal pages, things like that, you need to be sharing, you know, stuff that's going on in your life, what's going on with your family, pictures of your family together, mix in the occasional post about gratitude or, some inspiration, then mix in some of your business stuff. But if every post that you have is business, 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 you're going to eventually turn people off to that brand. Keep that on your page for your business. That's what your business page is for just your business content. And so if you want to, mix things up, that's going to be the best way to do it, whether that's reels, long form content, short form content, just making sure that you're mixing it up.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so, speaking of business, I know I mentioned a couple of the magazines from your pool business that you had, where you got into these very niched,
Yeah.
specialized magazines. First of all, kind of how did that kind of happen? I would be curious, from my own personal perspective, be curious about that. But I think other people would be curious about how do you maybe find these niche magazines that you were able to then be a contributor in, and like what was, I guess, the benefit from a marketing perspective for you to be in those
Yeah.
magazines?
Networking. I found them through networking. So whether it was events within the industry, trade shows, stuff like that, various Facebook groups for the industry, all sorts of stuff like that, and just being a contributor.
Hmm.
That's one of the things that we haven't talked about is different groups and stuff like that, and how you can kind of grow that personal brand. Groups is a great way to do it. Just be a contributor in those groups. Make sure that you have good content that you're putting out there that people can learn from, and eventually your personal brand will grow. That's one of the ways that I did it. It helped in that it helped our SEO side of things. So everything was backlinked to our company website anytime I was in those. And so it helped kind of in that essence. So when you Googled the company, all those articles came up. And, what helps build trust more than seeing, the business that you're looking up in national magazines.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Third party
publication.
validation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I've talked about this with relationships, and that I don't know the percentage, but I think it's a higher percentage than any other way that couples that are married end up meeting is through a mutual friend.
Yeah,
And it
absolutely.
seems to be the way. And that's really that third party validation. And I would say most business, especially when you're starting out, now once you're a big name like Coke or something, you're probably still going
Yeah,
to
it's a
have like a
little
friend.
different.
Yeah, hey, try this out. But most people, would almost on the planet at this point know what Coca-Cola is
Yes.
and everything. But when you're starting out, it's not about you going and asking for a sale. Yes, you still need to do that, but it seems to be, in my experience and from talking with other entrepreneurs, it seems that that third party that brings that referral makes that sell happen, or at least makes it happen a lot easier. It
Yeah, it
seems a
makes
lot more
it way
seamless.
easier. There's no
Yeah.
easier sell than a referral. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, that is the easiest sell you will ever make is one that's a referral or
Yeah.
repeat business.
Yeah. So kind of diving into the magazine side, that the niche and
Mhm.
everything, obviously it made sense. You had a pool company, you got on a pool magazine. But for us as speakers, sometimes it's hard because you want to get on stage, you want to get yourself out there, get your message out there. How important would you say it is for us to really try and hone in on niche events that we go speak at versus
Extremely.
just taking any opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, when you start taking any opportunity, you're not going to find that target audience. And so, really, when you attend these niche events, you're honing in on who that target audience is. And the more well known you become in that target audience, the bigger stages that you're going to get on. But when you spread yourself thin and you go to all these different things that may not have to do with what you speak on best or what you want to do, you're not reaching the same audience. So what difference does it make? At the end of the day, you're more than likely wasting time. You're gathering experience, but you're not speaking to the right people. And when you're not speaking to that target audience, you're not going to get where you want to go because they don't see your content.
And I would love to hear from like your marketing perspective on this too. So I agree with you. I think going to that niche side really helps out and that gets you that exposure that you truly want. But I would love to hear from your marketing perspective on that. Let's look at it kind of holistically.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just try it. Let's like kind of like dive through that. I'd be kind of curious. Let's say I've got, I've got a speech coming up. I'm going to be going to this niche event from a consumer perspective. If I is of course when we have an event we were going to post on social media, hey, going to this event, it's in my
Yeah.
niche. What does that do from a marketing perspective for our personal brand when
It
we're going to speak on a stage, especially one that's niched for
it builds
our industry?
trust. At the end of the day, it builds trust. You're an authority figure now within that niche that people can trust. And so when people see that, they're more likely to buy.
Mm.
So as you're building your brand, it's most important to speak on things that you want to be seen as. So when you're developing that brand, if you're speaking, let's say you're within the pool industry and you want to speak on the pool industry, what good does it do you to go speak at a roofing event? That's not building that
I
brand,
want to
you
pull on
know?
the roof.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, yes. But the people that you're trying to bring in as your target audience through your brand, you're not bringing in. They're not seeing that content. And so you're no longer the authority on pools. You're just this guy who speaks on everything.
Yeah.
And I think from a marketing perspective, you really have to hone in on what your brand is and develop that brand, and then stay very narrow in those efforts and not as wide.
And is there some point where maybe you start to broaden out a little bit? Because I can see this side where,
Yeah,
okay, you
absolutely.
got really niche, you started building this brand, and now it's kind of, you go from being the small fish in the small pond to being the big fish in the small pond.
Yeah, as
Is
you
there-
scale, you get like an Alex Hormozy that you see everywhere,
Mhm.
David Goggins, guys like that. Absolutely. But, those guys didn't start off speaking on every stage that they could think of. They started in a very specific area.
Mm.
And I think that that's what most people fail to realize is that those guys didn't start off speaking on these giant stages for everyone doing motivational speaking. They started in a very specific industry and talking about that specific industry.
Yeah, so niche is definitely a very important thing, but would be curious if from a just going back to the marketing perspective. I'm
Yeah.
really picking your brain on this marketing side. So we got this event. Obviously, we want to stay niche. That's great. But as far as leveraging that speaking opportunity the most, because if we are speakers, we're trying to show that, hey, I'm a speaker, look at me, kind
Yeah,
of thing,
absolutely.
without obviously flashing it every time and just throwing on everybody that I'm a speaker. What would be maybe like a process you would use to make sure we get the most out of this speaking engagement? And I say this, like, what things can we make sure that we get? Because when I think about this, obviously there's some promotion that happens before the event. We might be able to get photos or videos of us
Photos,
speaking on the
videos,
stage and stuff. Like,
long
I would
form
love to hear
content,
like a
short
list of
form.
things that we should try and target to get to be able to use to promote us as a speaker after that event, even, and obviously up to the event too. So
Yeah, I
like
think,
your
a
side.
lot of the pre stuff that you see, so a lot of the social media pre type stuff, if you have videos of you speaking at other events, you can kind of chop that up and put it, in front of some promotional banners and things like that for social media use to help promote the event, photos, things like that, getting the long form of your video, posting it on YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, things like that, getting the short form, using it as Instagram reels, using it as TikTok reels, Facebook reels, all of that, getting YouTube shorts, making sure that you're posting to various websites, not various websites, various social media accounts. So
Mhm.
having one dedicated for, if you're building your personal brand, making sure that you're posting on your personal brand, but also on your business platforms as well. But making sure that all of that links back to you personally. I think that's going to be huge in promoting that. Other than that, having links to, be able to watch it live, having links to be able to go on your website where people can click on it and follow it back to that website. So making
Yeah.
sure that, you have those URLs available everywhere.
I like that, and it's such a true thing. And I was talking with somebody, another speaker here recently, a little bit about this, and they talked about that the event hosts, event coordinators, they will actually look and like if they Google you
Yeah.
and they look up Chris Bowen, and if it's like something there, but like one thing, I don't know
They're
about
probably
this
not going
Chris
to
guy.
use
Like
that
he
guy.
he doesn't seem
Yeah,
like a great speaker.
they want to see how many things are going to pop
Yeah.
up when they Google somebody or they Google a company. And the more different things that you can get, it's why having social media, even if you're not active on it, it's important to have it for your business.
Hmm.
So, even though you're not on Twitter, your business should have a Twitter. Even if you're not, active on Yelp, your business needs to have a Yelp. Having all of those things really helps when somebody Googles your name or, I don't know if people still use Yahoo, but if they go on Yahoo and look up your name, it's important that they find, all those various links because it comes back to that trust factor.
Yeah. I particularly use Ask Jeeves all the time.
There you go.
That came out of the archives somehow. I just thought
Right?
about
No
that.
kidding. Are you on AOL AIM as well?
Yeah, I got
Instant
a
messaging people?
AOL email. It's Philip
Yeah.
Sessions at AOL.com.
I love it.
Yeah, no, that's funny. But yeah, and I agree with you, man. Like in doing those things. So what are some things that we can do besides having the social medias, doing the Yelps, making sure we're on the Yahoo searches, all of that good stuff? Where are some places that we can get that exposure? Because you've also mentioned about backlinks, and for those that
Mhm.
don't know what a backlink is, essentially, and you kind of explain a little bit, but it's like having your website or something about your name on somebody else's website that
Exactly right.
links back to you or links back to your website or something of importance that shows that it's you and
That is
everything.
probably
You can
the
explain that better
easiest
than me.
way. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to build your SEO right there is backlinks on various websites. So making sure that, anytime you do anything for anybody, they include a link to your website to whether it's your personal page or your business,
Mhm.
preferably both. That's probably the fastest way to grow organically is that right there. Outside of that, really just being consistent. So being consistent in everything that you do, making sure that you're listed on all major things. So like a big one is Manta. A lot of people don't know about it, but it's one of the first things that pop up when you Google a business. It'll list how many employees you have, what the range is for your gross income, a lot of different attributes on there. Um, that's a really big one that a lot of people don't know about. So just making sure that your business is listed anywhere you can possibly find on the internet, make sure it's listed there.
Okay.
So
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know like podcasts are a great way as well, like other ways
podcasts are a
because
fantastic way.
yeah, because and that's one thing I kind of stumbled upon myself. Definitely not the SEO expert like you, but I found that like just being on Facebook, just being on Instagram, it kind of only has that one link, even though you may put hundreds or thousands of posts. And
Yeah.
yes, they all have their own individual link, but on Google, I found at least that it doesn't really populate that way, or it's
No.
each individual post. So being on things like other websites, being, mentioning your website, being on other people's podcasts. So when I search Chris Bowen or Philip Sessions, like our names pop up in all of these things that we're on.
That's
So
exactly
trying
right.
to put yourself in other people's environments, other people's pools, networks, whatever you want to call it, is a great way to build up that SEO and everything.
Another great way that people don't take advantage of is their local chambers. So once you become a member of your local chamber, guess what?
Mm,
They create a profile for you on their website as well.
mm,
So that's another way. The more chambers that you're a part of, the more, links that you're going to have in regards to that. So when I ran my business, we were a part of 4 or 5 different networking groups that did that. So just the more places that you can get your information out there, the better that it's going to be for you.
nice. That's good. And so just to make sure, I feel like, I've got to okay grasp at marketing, maybe not 100% like you. Is
No,
there
you're doing
anything that
great.
maybe I missed that you think would be really good advice for us as speakers trying to market ourselves, make sure that we're searchable and everything that we could share with the audience at this point?
I think you're doing all the things that you need to do. You have your dedicated social media pages, you have a dedicated website to you. You've got your podcast. You're doing all of the major things that need to be done, in my opinion, in order to be successful. I think that a lot of people they just need to put the pieces in place and produce the content that they need.
Mm.
I think a lot of people, post maybe once a month on their social media. That's not enough. To really drive that engagement and drive that growth, you got to be consistent in it. So just continue to stay consistent and it'll continue to come.
And then you kind of mentioned that, like, obviously once a month, that's not a lot at all.
Yeah.
And like with podcasts, that could be a little bit better. I mean, I would still think try and go weekly. If anything, you don't need
Yeah.
to do every single day and stuff like that. But then with social media, if we do see some people are posting like 7 to 10 times a day. I mean, Gary Vee talks about, what is he up to now? Like 13 or 15 times a day, something ridiculous. So obviously we're not at a Gary Vee level, but what would you say like would be a good target for somebody trying to get into social media, trying to build that consistency? Because I also hear it takes time to
It
have
does
all
take
of this build
time.
up. So what would you suggest kind of as like that starting block for them to get comfortable, but also enough that it's not like, okay, well, let me wait 5 years for this all to happen. Something to, like we talked about offline, let's move that timeline, speed up that timeline and everything a little
I
bit.
would say a minimum of once a day.
Okay.
I think for people really trying to grow their brand, once a day. If it's a business account, you need to be doing a minimum of 3 times a week. I think that's the minimum, not including stories and things like that, but just posts, 3 a week on a business account versus a personal brand, minimum once a day. Ideally, you're going to have between probably 4 and 5 a day, I would say. That really gets your content seen more. It drives that engagement, and the more engagement you get, the better the algorithm likes your content and will push it out there more.
Mm.
And then occasionally you'll get a post that goes viral. I saw somebody the other day got like 2 million views on a post, which is insane.
Yeah.
I think the most I've ever gotten on a post is probably like 40,000. So, which is still a lot.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that it takes time. It takes time to build that up and build that content machine. So just be
Yeah.
consistent about it.
Yeah, be consistent, be niched, give it time. It's all going to happen. But if you want to start marketing yourself as a speaker, or really whatever you want to market yourself as, you got to start doing that. So like
You
Chris
just got
said,
to
like at
start.
least once a day. Like,
Yeah. You just got to start. It's not hard to come up with content once a day.
mhm.
When you start posting 4 and 5 times a day, it gets a little bit harder to come up with content that people are going to connect with. But once a day, it should be easy.
Yeah. And if you're not like, yeah, once a week, just start somewhere, get consistent with that, and then start adding in. Don't try and go 4 times a day. I promise you're going to burn out very
You
quickly.
will. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And mix it up. I mean, it can be reels, it can be live videos, it can be photos of your family, it can be quotes, it can be memes, just be consistent in whatever that you're going to do. Just get that content out there. Just start posting.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Well, guys, this was a lot of information all around marketing. I love bringing in marketers here to come talk about this. Chris, you've got a wealth of knowledge. Before we ask where people can go find you, I want to get to our last question, or I guess second to last, technically. And that is, if you can only share one message for the rest of your life, what would that message be?
I would say, oh, that's a tough one right there, man. That's a tough one. I would say no matter what in life, don't ever give up. Continue pressing forward.
I
That's
like
what I'm
it.
going to say. That's my message to everybody.
I like it, which goes back to the consistency, which we were talking about. Like, don't give up, just keep pushing it forward, because
That's
with that
exactly right.
content, like he said, you might get 40,000 once, you might get 2 million once, but it's not going to happen all the time. But you got to continue to do
That's
it no matter
exactly right.
what. And I'm sure you can attest to this with clients as well, that when they first start out, 10, 20 likes if you're lucky,
Yeah,
But
then
then
you
over
go to
time, being
thousands.
consistent, it finally gets there to be 20 or 30 very consistently. And that's, that might even be on the low side, but it's like a guaranteed minimum
That's
versus
exactly
beginning
right.
like one or two is typically what it is. And it's mom for most of them.
That's exactly right. Mom
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
wife.
exactly. Exactly. But man, love you, mom. Thanks for supporting me at all times. No, but Chris, man, if people want to follow you, want to be able to ask you questions, I know you're open to be able to answer some questions, hop on calls, stuff
Yeah,
like that.
always.
Where can they go to get that help?
All major social medias. So super easy to find me on there. I have a verified account on most of them. If you want to find the website, it's leveluptx.net. That's going to be the best way. It's got links to all of our stuff. It's got links to different events coming up, different things that we got going on, our blog posts, social media accounts, all of that. So
And that's a LVL level, right?
it
Not,
is. It's
yeah.
lvluptx.net.
All right, cool. Cool. So, Chris, man, appreciate you coming on, sharing the value. This was great. We all need to hear more about marketing, how we can market ourselves, because if people don't know who we are, if they don't see us, they're not going to want
Your
us on
content
their
will never get
stage.
out there. Yep.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you so much, man. You have a great day.
You too.